My name is Cindy Moore. My company is Smart and International. I teach people how to be polite and civil. And don't we need it in this world today?
Yeah. So, and you're in High Point, North by Golly, Carolina.
That's right. Furniture capital of the world.
Hop, a skip, and a jump a little bit down the road from where I am. And we've known each other for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably back in the early, probably before I joined Toastmasters. You may be one of those people that told me to join Toastmasters because I used to mumble a lot. I don't think you use those words, but you and Joel Kazmarek. You remember Joel?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
he's at the beach now.
Yeah, quasi retired. So anyway, our special guest today is out of Omaha, Nebraska. It's April Kelly. April has a business where she today is, hope I say this right, but I can get April to help me fix it, is she writes children's books today. Some really cool stuff. So, but April's gonna have a conversation with us appropriate for today about what she has coined as your gratitude quotient. April, would you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Yes, Teddy, thank you so much for that intro. And I am delighted to talk to you today about your gratitude quotient. And when Teddy was asking me about coming on the show, I thought, I want to grab everybody's attention. And we know about your IQ, which is your intellect. We know about your emotional quotient, which is how do you read emotions, but how about your GQ? And I thought that's kind of clever. It's a double entendre because there's a really sexy magazine that's GQ, but this is all about gratitude. And I'm coming to you from Omaha. I wrote a book on gratitude 12 years ago. It's called Gratitude at Work, Timeless. And I wrote it because I started 2 call centers here in Omaha, one for a little company you might know, it's called PayPal. And the other one is for another company that I think Teddy's a little bit familiar with, and that's called LinkedIn. And through those experiences, I built a lot of teams and I was asked what made them successful. And it really made me reflect on what am I doing different? Turnover is very low. I had very good quality, and it was really gratitude. So that prompted me to write this book, and that's why I want to talk to you guys today about gratitude.
Yeah, and April, and that other company, LinkedIn, I'm a part of a program with them called Content Creators. And every week they send an email out with a hashtag to use for the week. And the hashtag to use for this week is quite apropos, I think is the right word, is Gratitude Week, hashtag Gratitude Week. So I've been using that phrase very deliberately, and I'm hoping I've been using it very appropriately throughout the week. So it's been fun to do. So thanks for showing up and joining us today. So Cindy is going to play the role of Randy, and I'm sure she'll play it way better than Randy does. And I don't know if Cindy is vying for the job. We have a few other people who are considering making a run for Randy's job. But Cindy's in. Thank you for showing up twice to cover for Randy or me. And but if you have questions, you have anything you want to share or idea, drop it in the chat, and Cindy will bring it up into the conversation. So April, gratitude. It's a big word. I mean, it has a lot. It has a lot of different ways we can use it. And we can look at gratitude in life. We can look at gratitude in relationships. We can look at gratitude in our jobs. Why is this so important?
Well, it has been underappreciated, which is really an oxymoron because we're talking about gratitude, but it's something we've really taken for granted. And I love what Cindy does, because when I started talking about this years and years ago, I would always open with, and I'd be talking to a room full of professionals, what are the 2 most important words in business? And people would kind of sit there and look at me, and then, I'd have a little hand go up and it would be like profit or bottom line. And, as we started to converse, I said, let's step back. Who has children in the room? Oh, everybody started participating and everybody has kids. And I said, okay, so when your children are growing up, you can't wait for them to do things like walk and start moving, and then they start talking. Well, what's one of the first things you teach your children when they're very young? And I'm hoping it's still a tradition, and Cindy can probably speak to this, but when someone does something nice for you or holds the door open for you, the proper response is thank you. And I said the two most important words in business today are thank you. And it's really come full circle, and why it's important. It is very interesting. It used to be, I would just speak on the part of, if you're managing a group of people, it's so important to express gratitude to the people on your team to help them maintain a really high level of performance. However, because we've had this little pandemic and things have really changed in the workplace, gratitude is now a game changer to retain employees. And the difference between keeping an employee or seeing them walk out the door may be how much you appreciate them. And if you're not very good at it, just like any other muscle, it's something you're really going to have to work on.
Yeah.
There's a question that says, how do you introduce this concept to your boss or HR for discussion?
Buy my book. No, and actually, I will send you a copy of this because I'm managing up is an art. And I think the best way to introduce this idea is to do it yourself and to start seeing those results. What do I mean by that? If you have an HR person that you really want to make a big splash with, get to know them. What makes them tick? You know, if it's a male, and we're in Omaha. So if it's a male and I get to know him and he likes sports or he likes cars, if he does something that I want to make sure that he knows I'm grateful for, you know, maybe he's instilled a leadership program. As a sign of appreciation, maybe I'll get him a certificate for a car wash. Maybe I will get him a magazine subscription for a sporting event. But you need to build relationship to be effective at expressing gratitude. But the best way to do it is by example.
I was just going to say, it sounds like to me, you're saying the best way to get people interested in it is show it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I got to remind myself that when I'm at Thanksgiving dinner with 12 minus 3, 9 little grandkids.
That's great math.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, excellent question though. And I would love to know if people do something, I would love to know how it turns out. And Teddy, I'm going to go ahead and tell my story about the elderly man in the grocery store, because tomorrow's Thanksgiving and we're here right now, but we're thinking about who's coming, who's flying in, what am I going to bake? You know, our mind, we've got monkey mind all over the place. But if we just take a minute to kind of center, I want to share a really sweet gratitude story with you. I had spoken about gratitude with a group of realtors, and I was talking to them about how they build dreams and just the gratitude that goes along with finding the right house and helping that transition. And anyway, the talk went extremely well, and everybody was very engaged. And right after my talk, one of the realtors went grocery shopping, and she noticed as she walked out, there was an elderly man sitting in front of the grocery store, and he had 2 bags in one of those push carts that he was waiting for a ride. And she went, and her daughter was with her, and she got in her car, and she's still sitting there, and he looked perplexed and kind of concerned. And she did the whole, you know, should I approach, shouldn't I? Well, she walked up to this gentleman and said, sir, are you waiting for someone? And he said, yes, he was waiting for his ride, and he had his wife's medication in the groceries, and his ride was taking a longer time, and he was starting to get worried because his wife was home by herself waiting for him. Well, she took the leap of faith, which I'm not endorsing this, but I just think it was so sweet. She and her daughter offered to take him to his home, which was only a few blocks away. So they loaded his cart, and he got in the back of their car. They had a lovely conversation, and the daughter and the mother were in tears dropping him off because he was trying to pay them, and he was so grateful. And they could see the wife in the window just excited and smiling. And they said, they didn't have to do anything else for the rest of the year. That really fed their gratitude bucket. And they knew where this man lived, and now they correspond, and they send him cards, and his wife, and they've struck up this friendship. So I'm not telling everybody to go find people who are waiting for rides outside the grocery store, but in this case, it really worked out.
That's a cool story, April. What it reminds me is that you never know the value of an action that is done with compassion until you do that action.
You're so right.
Yeah, so good stuff. Hey, let's look at it another way. Health impact. I mean, we hear this all the time. People go, "Oh man, Teddy, go do good for somebody. It'll make you feel good." Look, I'm trying to sound like somebody off of Archie Bunker or something. Randy does that better than me because he's more like Archie Bunker than I am. But we hear that. Do something good for somebody, it'll help you. Is there any reality? Can you put that in some context, or either some study or some statement? Maybe you can make me believe that, April.
Absolutely. Archie Bunker would be a great test for gratitude. But Robert Emmons, he's in California. He is really the grandfather of gratitude, and he has headed up a lot of studies. And they have found when you are in a state of gratitude, it really activates the cerebral front vortex of your brain. Now, my science is very limited, so know that I am really on the edge right now. But when you have a lot of activity in this part of your brain, it does have a nice effect, and it calms you down throughout your body. Now, even better than that, they worked with people that had experienced an issue with their heart, whether it was a heart attack, a blockage, they had some sort of cardiac issue. And they worked with a group of 300 patients over a 90-day period. And they split them into 3 groups. They had one main group that just got standard care, and they went through their therapies. They were in the hospital and then outpatient. Then they had another group, and they really actively worked on gratitude with them. They got them thinking about it. If they could journal, they would journal, but everything was very positive and uplifting, and really celebrating any type of wins that those patients had. Then on the other side, it was not necessarily negative. It was just kind of like, questioning and very suspect, and can we do this? And they looked at the results of these 300 patients, and there was a 45% increase in the overall wellness of the group that applied gratitude. And just having that different state of mind changed the therapies. I mean, the people that worked with these groups, they noticed. The physical therapists, the occupational therapists were like, wow. I mean, you could just tell how they approached therapy. The gratitude group was excited and very positive, and they were ready to go. So it really physically made a tremendous difference. And those other 2 groups got a lot of love after the study, and they got them all moving as well.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good for you.
Cindy?
Yeah, Dean Chen has a question. He said he took a class on the 5 kinds of love, and not everybody appreciates gifts. They rather have other type of appreciation. How do you find what kind of appreciation someone needs?
Dean, that is such a great question, and I'm so glad he asked that. Gratitude is definitely all about relationship. And he's absolutely right. In the work, I'm going to use a workplace as my example. When you're expressing gratitude, there are cultures where if you are acknowledged in public, it's actually seen as a bad thing, and it is not welcomed. And people get very embarrassed. And there would be nothing worse than spending a lot of time to show someone appreciation and then really getting it wrong. So to Dean's point, you're absolutely right. You need to understand what is important to the other person. And to express gratitude, it might be taking out the trash. It might be making a meal, or the obvious things such as a written word. And I want to come back to that because the written word is a dying art and it can be so impactful. But that's an obvious thing. And saying thank you. But also when you are speaking to someone, something that is dying as well is that moment of being present and being fully engaged in the conversation. I can tell you right now, I'm in a room and I'm talking with all of you. My cell phone, I don't know where it's at. I know it's turned off and it's in another room of the house. And it makes my kids crazy that I do this, but I think to just give it your all and to be fully present, that's such a gift. And then I'm in a state of being prepared to respond and to really listen. And maybe that's all you need from me. And maybe that's the best way I can show you gratitude is to say, hey, Dean, tell me about your day. And to just really sincerely listen and not be doing this or, that could also be a gift.
And Dean is referring to the book written by Gary Chapman. And Gary is from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Yes. The title of the book is The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts. And in total transparency, Teddy has that book and has read it.
Yes, I have that book as well. And yes, it's a great book. We don't all operate the same. And my husband is big on acts. He wants to do the chores and he wants to do this. I want time. Just sit with me and let's have some time together. So yeah, no, it is a great book.
Yeah. And this conversation is relevant to all of us, no matter who we are, where we are in business, where we have a job, we don't have a job. And it might be a little harder for some of us who, especially those, April, 50% of the people who listen to this or show up to the show are unemployed. And so it might be a little harder when you're struggling with the challenge in life, looking for a job, worried about the mortgage and bills and paying for the kids' orthodontic bills, et cetera, to think about why should I have gratitude when I have these challenges? Can you play with that idea?
Absolutely. It's even harder, but I think you gain so much more character. I know for myself, when I have been kicked and I am down and like the last thing I want to do is put on makeup and get out of the sweats, right? But I think when I made myself write those thank you notes and think about what am I grateful for, all of a sudden my focus goes from being on me and my pity party, because I'm really good at it. I mean, man, I can throw a good one. I'm glad my husband isn't in here. But all of a sudden the focus is on everybody else and the sun is shining and my whole disposition changes. And I think when you're searching for a job, it's very challenging. And one of the things, if you get an interview, if you have a conversation, I have always stressed, and I have grown children and they could speak for me and probably do this verbatim. Please send a handwritten, not an email, not a text, a handwritten thank you card with a stamp that goes through the postal service to the people that you talk to, thanking them for their time. And I'm going to just divert a little bit to the written word, because I think with the age of acronyms and texting, we've gotten so lazy And it's nobody's fault. It's just the whole idea of multitasking was introduced 20 years ago, and we all thought that was the thing to aspire to do. Well, it burned us all out, and now we don't know how to have a conversation or to write a letter. If you are going to write thank you cards, tomorrow's Thanksgiving, and if you want to write a thank you to grandma or to mom for the meal, I guarantee you smiles and Christmas is coming, or Hanukkah, or whatever you celebrate.
Now that's
Anyway,
with an agenda there, April. That's with an agenda.
I know, I'm teasing, but in all sincerity, you want to be specific about why you're writing, and then call something out about dinner. Or if you had an interview, I really enjoyed talking to you about your 5-year plan, or whatever the case may be, but be specific, because it tells them you were listening, and it also puts more of an identity on who this card is from. And it gives you more of a name than just John Doe.
Yeah.
And both of those things are just real big assets. And the last thing I would share is there was a recent article in October about more than a quarter of people between the ages of 25 and 40 have not written a handwritten letter in over 5 years.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's like 100 million people have not written a letter. And I think back, this will date me, and it's okay, but I think back to President Reagan. One of his greatest legacies that he left behind were his letters to Nancy. And these were pages, I mean, 5, 6 on the yellow tablets. And they were eloquent and they were beautiful. And writing letters gets it out of your head onto paper. And it's such a talent, but it's also therapy. That's why, I have this journal. It's just plain and I write in it. But journaling is so good for you, because just that act, it gets it out. It puts it on paper, and you may want to rip that paper out and burn it, or you may want to frame it. But it gets it out, and you can move forward with your day. Letters are a legacy, and I'm a one-man person campaigning for write those notes, write those letters, and I'll proofread a little.
I'm with you. And that's a challenge. I struggle with that. I just wrote down, Teddy, write a letter, write a note. It's something I don't do. And my boss, who I told you can hear me downstairs, she bought me a box of thank you cards, for me to send to people who help us in our business, grow our business. And just not been something that I've been good at doing. I'm good with an email. Boy, I can whip out a beautiful, thankful, grateful email, but to write a personal note, and so you've thrown down a challenge, April. I just wrote down on my to-do list to do that, to go practice it.
Teddy, is that a Jeff Foxworthy moment where here's your sign?
Yes, ma'am, I will accept that.
So once again, Dean says, what about if you have really bad handwriting?
Dean, that means you have really poor fine motor skills. My son is terrible. And I'm like, it's great practice. And I'm sorry, with the internet and with online dictionaries, even you too can spell. If my husband can spell check, you can spell check. My husband is the worst speller, and we write letters.
Yeah.
Little love letters.
Yeah.
So it can happen. Just take your time and just go slow. It will be much appreciated.
Comes back to that word I use for myself, Dean, practice. Cindy, you want to grab Lisa's note?
Yeah, Lisa said she wrote a thank you note to the tow truck driver on the highway that stopped and helped her get her spare onto the car. And she realized that they were just doing their job, but she showed gratitude. Yeah. And let me tell you, every single person, we want to be appreciated. We're born into this world wanting to be loved and appreciated. And so when you do that, it's the old adage of, we don't think about what you did, we think about how you made us feel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it goes
Oh,
back
Lisa,
to,
that's beautiful.
absolutely. I love it. I have a story on my blog that I might share out with the group later on about gratitude and why it was important for me. But hey, I want to come back to job seekers and that handwritten note. Look, it's not something I do. I clearly say it's just not something I do. However, in the world of business development, in the world of job seeking, which is a form of business development, if you can do something a little different, a little better than the other person, you position yourself above the other candidate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the right handwritten note that's not all full about, hire me, but really all full of gratitude is a powerful way to be a little different, a little better. Sometimes I refer to that as being a freak, and freaks are people who are unusual, unexpected, and unique. So
Yes.
go back to, hey, let's do Cindy, anything else come up in the chat before I move to the next topic?
Well, one of the things that Dean had said is that some people are wary about getting mail, because of anthrax and everything else. But I think that's the lesser of two. It depends on what we're in. And I don't think anybody would send me any anthrax.
Well, I think I'm with you. I apologize profusely for doing that. But the other perspective as well is that, we all work, a lot of us work remote, and we may not want to give out our home addresses to people.
Sure.
Kind of get that. If you work in an office, it's a little easier. If you have a relationship with the person, it's a little easier to get their home address, but not everybody wants that. So April, thoughts?
It's a catch-22. I will tell you, for me, when I go to my mailbox, I think we all go there. And right now we're getting bombarded with catalogs, end of year statements, and then the usual bills if you have anything on paper. We're doing everything online. So when I get a cardboard or a colored envelope with a handwritten address on it, I'm like, whoa, yeah, it's sunshine in my mailbox. I do understand there are certain people who are a little bit more concerned. Postcards are great. Everyone's going to read your note, but you can do the larger ones. The postage is still really inexpensive on those. I did a cute card with a puppy on the front for the postcards. Animals, cats, dogs. I guarantee you, everyone that sees that postcard is going to look at it, including the receiver. And then if you write a nice note on the back, it's going to make the refrigerator. So you could have a fan club, just another alternative if you don't want to use regular letter paper, thank you cards. It's a great alternative.
Cool. Hey, good stuff. This is good conversation. Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. We got rid of Randy this week while he's out visiting family in Florida. Our special co-host is Ms. Cindy Martin. Our special guest today is April Kelly. The conversation is what we want to be thinking of this time of year. We should be thinking of a little bit more often than just this time of year. It's about gratitude and how gratitude can have such a powerful impact on your life. If you know anybody who's interested in the show, interested in the conversations, or if you have an idea for a special guest or an idea for a topic or even a sponsor who can help us make this show even more successful and rewarding for you, hit up Randy or Teddy. If you can't find us, that means your internet connection's broke. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Let's go back to April, this conversation. April, you told me a while back when we talked about your morning thankfulness, your morning thankfulness. Will you talk about that again today? I think it's an important idea.
Thank you for asking. Absolutely. So I keep my journal and a stack of thank you cards next to my nightstand. If I, like most people, sometimes I have great ideas that come through at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock. But first thing when I get up in the morning, I will write 3 to 5 thankfuls. And I try to be unique and specific. This morning, my thankfuls were my dog slept through the night. I've got a 14-year-old cockapoo that has dementia, and It's been really challenging. It's been like having a newborn, but she slept through the night. So that was my thankfuls, one of them. And then my other thankful was that I was going to have all of my children home for Thanksgiving. And the last thankful for my morning this morning was that my husband filled my gas tank. I hate doing this, and he did it without my asking. And I was like, oh, thank you, God, because it's just one of those things I hate doing. So that was my thankfuls. But I also had a thank you card, and I don't write the card out. What I'll do is I'll write the name of the person I need to send it to on the envelope that it's going to go into. I remembered in the middle of the night about 1:30 when I was checking on the dog that I needed to send my aunt a thank you card because she had sent me this beautiful cheese and meat basket last week. And I thought, oh, I've got to get this in the mail. So when we're done today, I'm going to handwrite that thank you card and get it to her. But I make sure I do those thankfuls in the morning. And I also do them right before I go to bed at night. And I try to recap, how did my day go? And one of my thankfuls tonight will be the conversations that we've had, and actually the love language reminder. That book is on my shelf, and it's got all sorts of Post-its on the top that, you know, when you're marking the pages. Yep. I need to go back and review some of those because I think I have forgotten. So those are a couple of things that I do. They don't take a lot of time. They're not necessarily pretty. I mean, I can write messy or write a little, you know, picture. Sometimes I'll stick one of my grandkids' colorings in there. I'm just grateful, and it just looking at it makes me smile. So those are a couple of things that I do.
Yeah, real cool, real cool. So I like the more. Cindy, you have a thought? You want?
There's a couple of things that Lisa said. She puts a note on the back of the envelope to the mail carrier to see that says, thank you for delivering this to the end receiver.
Yes.
That's somebody that I never forget at this time of year. And boy, do I get special service. But let's see. Chin also said, how do you approach the interviewer to say that you want to send them a handwritten card? In other words, you've got to get the address, or how do you get it to them?
So I always make sure that I get a business card from the person I'm interviewing with, because that'll give me usually their name and their exact title, because you want to make sure to get both of those things right. If the address, you never want to send it to their home. You want to keep it professional and send it to where their place of business is. If the address is not on it, I will ask them if they would mind giving me the address just for follow-up. Or with the internet, you can usually discern what an address is for a business, but always make sure you get a business card. If there isn't a business card available, then that's when you'd have to have the conversation. You know, would you mind telling me, I want to, you know, make sure I get your title exactly right. And how does that fit in the organizational structure? You can kind of frame it so it's not awkward, and then ask for a few more details so you can send that follow-up note via the postal service.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And if you're, go ahead, Cindy.
Another thing that he asked was, he said it's very depressing, you know, when you're on your job search. He said, how do you give yourself gratitude after a frustrating job search?
Boy, there's a lot to give yourself. So it's getting down in the weeds a little bit. When you're searching for a job, just the getting up and showing up and celebrating that you have been looking, celebrate that you made phone calls, appreciate, you know, what did you do to further your search? And it may have been, you got 5 emails today that said you're not the right candidate. That's okay. That means those are 5 things, 5 opportunities, you know, you can take off of your plate for right now. It clears some space for some new opportunities, so the right one will land on your plate. It's looking for ways to really acknowledge, again, it's going back to making yourself feel good, the things that you do and do well, because it is hard when you are looking for a role and you're not finding it, and staying positive and staying upbeat. and you want that energy because that makes you a better candidate. So really acknowledge and give yourself an atta girl for smallest things. It could be you brushed and flossed your teeth this morning and they're looking fabulous. Just, I know that sounds corny, but some days that's what it takes to get you walking on the right road.
Yeah, I'm sorry, April, pardon me. Go ahead.
I wanted to say one more thing. Cindy was talking about the note to the post office or the letter carrier. I have usually, and I've done it year round because it used to just be during the holidays. I have a weatherproof basket. It's just like a Rubbermaid thing out in the front porch of my house. And I keep it stocked with waters and sodas and some sort of snacks that they can take on the run with a thank you for anybody who makes deliveries. And I can't tell you how many of those people, I know my packages are set down more nicely, tidy, neatly, and they thank me, and it's not a big deal. I've got little Debbie stuff out there, or whatever I can put out there. And I had one UPS driver tell me, he goes, I haven't had a meal all day. He goes, this is going to get me through. And I thought, that was so easy, so
that is really cool. I'm going to go back to Dean's conversation. In April, you got me thinking, because I have way more packages showing up at my house lately as well. That would be a great way to be appreciative of those who serve me. But go back to Dean's question. It's tough in job search for you to find something to make you happy, find something that makes you feel good. And I'm with April on this. Celebrate the smallest little steps. Every time you do something you know is going to move you forward. Yes, it may seem like it's no big freaking deal that you wrote that email and sent it out, but you need to celebrate. I did that task. I did it right. I feel good about it. That's almost all you have to say to yourself out loud. Never speak to yourself in your head. Say it out loud. It's way more impactful. And then go do the next step. And then if you did it right, you did it good, you did it timely, you feel that you put everything you should into it, celebrate that. That was freaking fantastic, Teddy. Now let's move on to the next step. Small steps of gratitude, small thankfulness is, I'm not saying the right word, small signs of gratitude to yourself can really have a big impact on the way you feel and the way you think about what you're doing. I hope I said that right.
Teddy, if I could add on to that, something I did by mistake, because I just like being around people. And when, COVID hit and everybody was isolated, put a mirror on your desk.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to go crazy and talk to yourself all day, but to your point, when you rock something, turn to yourself and say, and you are rocking today. Like, we are on fire. And I know it sounds corny. Do it, try it. It will, the energy will increase. And all of a sudden, people around you are going to be like, what are you doing? I'm talking to myself. I got it going on.
You may not say that in the interview, but I'm with you. Yes.
Yes.
So go back to small acts. I think this is something that we undervalue as well, April, is the small acts of gratitude, the small acts of thankfulness. And I think, and I'm looking at it in my own perspective, that they're so simple that I'm like, that's no big deal. But I think it's the wrong way to think about it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think especially in this crazy age where we are oversaturated with information and data, and it's just all getting pushed to us 24/7, whether we want it or not. It's dinging on your phone. I think yesterday, I was at my favorite store. It's called Hobby Lobby. It's kind of like it's the one where I go in for one thing and walk out with, I can't say. But the checkout lines were 14 people deep, and nobody, they're short staffed, and it's great people watching. And I'm watching these cashiers, and of course I'm in a line. The gal in front of me gets a price check, which everybody behind me you hear this, oh, and I started laughing, which they didn't appreciate. But I got up there to that cashier, and she was a little bit older. And I said, I said, you are doing such a great job. And she looked at me and I said, you know what we should do? I said, do this with me. And I just said, and this big old grin on her face. And I didn't care but that just little acts of kindness like that will make people's day. And, I thanked her. She gave me my bags and I said, happy Thanksgiving. And I thought she was going to break her neck. We can slow down, we can be kind, and we can acknowledge the people that are serving us.
Yeah.
And they really need that right now. And we all need to be grateful for them because there's a shortage throughout the country of people willing to serve, whether it's in a restaurant or at a gas station or you name it. Everybody's looking for help. So the people that are working, be nice to them because they're doing the very best that they can. They don't want to have 15 people in line any more than you want to stand there.
And I say this, April, call it life, God, or karma. When you give in those simple ways, it comes back to you in ways you would never imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It really does. And one little thing I want to encourage everyone to do tomorrow, wherever if you are somewhere where you're volunteering, this could work in a volunteer setting, this can work in a home setting, but and my kids moan because I do this every year, but I know they also look forward to it because everyone is required to participate. I give them all a little piece of paper and I tell them to make sure they put the year on it and something they're grateful for. And I wait till everybody has theirs done. And then we go around the table and everybody says what they're thankful for. And some of them are similar. Some of them are very unique. And then when they're done, we take them and we fold them up and we put them in just a glass jar. And I put the lid on it and it becomes a time capsule for next year.
Cool.
And so I have last year's gratefuls that I'm going to read this year, and we're going to add to it every single year. If you were in a volunteer setting, you could do this by table. You could have a gratitude jar that they just share throughout a facility. It's just a nice way of being centered, and it gives you a legacy point. And it'll be fun tomorrow to see what we remember and what we've forgotten, because last year was so different from this year.
Real cool. I love it. I love it. Great idea. Tell us a little bit more, April, about your book, Gratitude at Work.
So it has real life things that you can do in the work setting. I will tell you, it's one of the prettiest books that was ever, I don't know if you can see this, but the pages are very attractive. The opening question about how could you get someone in HR to buy into this? I will tell you, I've had people order this book and send it to their boss anonymously. That could work, but it's got tips in here. It's got ideas. One of the favorite things that we did that embodied gratitude and giving back to the community, which I think is huge. When I was in a corporate setting, in a call center, we took a month of what we would spend on incentives to give to our top performers. We would give bonuses to people who really went above and beyond. Took all that money and I got gift cards to a local grocery store, and I split the entire call center into teams and I cross-utilized. So maybe IT was working with accounting, was working with the frontline people. Anyway, they all got gift cards to a grocery store, and the whole game, if you will, was I want you to go and buy as many groceries as you possibly can with this gift card, and we're going to donate it to the local food pantry. Cool. And it became a huge competition amongst these 4 teams. I had one rule: no top ramen, because you can buy a lot of ramen and they don't need that. But they were building these huge towers of soup, and they would talk to store managers, and they had, stores giving them deals. And we had our most productive month in November that we'd ever had. And it was all about that giving back, getting out of your own mind and thinking of other people. And it's definitely gratitude driven.
Yeah, that's real cool. I get it. I absolutely get it. You change your mindset to outward focus, positivity.
Yes.
It's about others. It's not about me. I studied, and we talked about this, April, and Cindy knows this. I studied this old dead guy named Dale Carnegie. And one of the books that Dale wrote is How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And there's lots of context in there about gratitude, about giving, about helping others to help overcome that worry, and how to live a happier life by helping others. And one of my that I'm blessed to have for myself, one of my mantras is lead with give, lead with give. And I just tell myself that on a regular basis. And it's just, it helps. It makes me feel better. It makes me healthier. I'm more spry, whatever that crap is. I'm with you. So, Cindy, anything?
Well, I did want to mention just a couple of things that Lisa said. She's always leaving her business card when she does go and volunteer, so that if somebody really needs some help, that they could contact her. But she also said, in answer to Dean's thing, that she pre-writes her thank you note. Good girl, good girl. You pre-write it. You've got it already filled out, everything. You're going to add in there something specific that applied to the interview, and leave it at the front desk. Great job, Lisa. That's the perfect thing to do.
Yeah, real cool. It's real cool. Let's talk about one more idea before we get close to, because we're getting close to wrapping up. You used the word in our previous conversation, April, chivalry. And chivalry, yes. Yeah. Talk about that a little bit in the context of gratitude.
This will not be politically correct, and that's okay. This is an Aprilism, and I'm happy for the fan mail afterwards, but I would like everyone to embrace chivalry. What does chivalry mean? There are certain graces that were handed down through the generations up until the last 20 years, when technology kind of took over our lives. But there were certain things that were done, and it was just part of society, and it was appreciated. And I'll give you an obvious one. A man holding the door open for a woman. That is chivalry. That's a chivalrous action. And I appreciate that. I wait for that. If I am approaching a door with a male, I will wait. And then the appropriate response is to say thank you. Now, I have seen my younger contemporaries get very offended by this. And I really want to encourage people of all ages, when people are doing something like this, and it could be chivalry and it may not be chivalry, be appreciative. A man holding out the chair as you're sitting down at the table for a meal, he's not going to pull it out unless it's your brother. That's a different thing. But usually a gentleman is doing that to be polite and to have good manners. And that is a piece of gratitude and chivalry, and it's dying in our culture. And when you experience it, embrace it, because that person who is doing it, they are doing it out of the kindness of their heart, and they're doing it from a really good place. Yeah. And I really want to encourage people to appreciate that.
Yeah. And April, I'm with you all the way around. It's not a sexist thing. It's not a male dominance thing. It's just what you said. It's humans being polite and friendly and courteous to other humans. I went to Raleigh. Went to some museums in Raleigh a couple of weeks ago, and so there's a lot of doors, going in and out of a lot of doors. In these buildings, the restaurants, with me and a group of my family. I'd always, me or somebody else in the group, would hold the door open, let our family in, and then here comes 3 other families. We just stand there politely, and sometimes we take tips, and we just let people in. And it was just second nature. It wasn't something, it wasn't difficult to do, and it didn't take a lot of time. And, sometimes you would see that situation where, I've let 4 families in, my family's way ahead of me. So maybe you would pass the door. I've gotten good at this. I would pass the door to the next person.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So I'm with you. I get it. It's to me, it's all about a human being polite, friendly, and courteous to another human.
Well, and remember the elders. Please remember the elders.
Please do.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a line, if you're on a train, on a bus, and there's someone next to you who's obviously older than you, or even if they're not older than you, and maybe they've got a special, give them your seat. I mean, do the right thing. And the last plug for gratitude on that, we have nursing homes throughout the country who would love to hear from you. They don't care what your handwriting looks like. You could just write a letter and just tell them how wonderful the day is, what you've enjoyed about the change of seasons. You could have your little ones color pictures. They will love mail, any kind, any size, any shape. I used to volunteer and do bingo. Thursday night was my bingo night, and that was my favorite night of the week. But COVID has changed that into a virtual experience, which it still works, but it's not the same. I miss my hugs, and I miss my peeps.
I get it. April, fantastic. This is a great conversation. I really appreciate you showing up and sharing with us today. And I look forward to the adventures of Goggle Man hitting the newsstand. When is that going to happen?
All right, this is my original children's book. We didn't even talk about what I'm doing now. I'm terrible at PR for myself. My publisher is going to kill me. So this was the original one. The latest adventure of Goggle Man is about a horse trail. It went live today. Go to my website, Adventures of Goggle Man. They're both on there. They are meant for reading to 4 to 7-year-olds. I will tell you, my illustrator is phenomenal. These are great. They're good little stories. They talk about doing good things and kind things, and Big Brother looking out for his little sister. And there are a couple of really cute dogs in there. This is what I'm doing right now. And
I'm happy for you. Now, just a quick note. Do you know Goggle Man?
Goggle Man is actually my son. And this is a story about him when he was little. I caught him flying across the bottom of the stairs in the basement. And I finally went down there, and he strapped on his swim goggles and wrapped a blanket around his neck and said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm Goggle Man." And I was like, there's a story in there. And
it's out now. So cool stuff. April, again, thank you very much for showing up and sharing with us and being gracious about doing it. So
my pleasure. And I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. This has been a blast.
Cool. Cindy, do you have a story?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I do have a story, because one of the things that I do, many moons ago, I got volunteered by my daughter to be the band president, but and I bought a button maker, and so I have a 1-inch button maker. And so during the whole year, I have a button that says nice, and during the Christmas, I have the button that says joy. And just like you said, when I get up through that long line to that person, I hand them a button. And I say, I want you to have joy. And that's something that no one can take from you. And it is amazing at the reaction. And even just my naughty and nice buttons. When you hand someone a button, they are so appreciative, and they immediately put it on.
Yeah, real cool.
That's a great idea. I may have to steal that, Cindy. I love that idea.
Yeah, real cool. Hey, I'll share with you a story of gratitude that I did a speech a year or so ago, and it's related to this show. I did a speech or a presentation to another job search group out in San Diego area, I think where it was. And the lady out there, her name is Vinny. Vinny was so appreciative of me giving an hour of my time, which for me is not a huge investment because I really love doing this. But I did a presentation for her group in San Diego, and Vinny proceeded. April, who introduced us?
Kathleen Ronald.
Kathleen, different introduction, same context. Vinny introduced me to about 15 people with individual handwritten, typed out, but individually written messages to about 15 people. All messaging was a little bit different, which meant there was no copy and paste involved. She gave way more than an hour of time to introduce me to a bunch of people who have subsequently, many have become and or are upcoming guests on this show. That's rich. I mean, I couldn't have paid for that, you know, and gotten the value that I got out of just donating an hour's time, and her showing her gratitude in that way was just phenomenal. So I share that with you, A, to thank Vinny for all that she's done, and I've thanked her in other ways, and I have other ways to do it yet. But to let you know is that lead with give can create value that you can never imagine, as long as, and we joked about it, April, as long as your give is done with no expectation.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So cool. So, hey, next week will be the first week of December, 12/8. Is that really going to be 12/8? Yeah, it will be 12/8. Maury Schwartz, Mauri Schwartz, Schwartz, will join us. Maury is a career coach, and the conversation everybody who is in job search needs to be a part of. How to get your foot in the door, and what do you do next? It's going to be another fantastic grassroots conversation for our job seeker friends. So we hope you all join us next week, 11:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on, again, 12/8. April, have an absolutely glorious holiday. Cindy, thank you very much for covering for Randy and doing a way better job than he does. I'm joking. You know I appreciate my buddy. And we'll see you guys all another day. Have a great weekend and a great holiday.
Sounds great. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.